Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Last Sunday, Grand Canyon State took on Nebraska for the fourth time over that four-game set, and they were trailing 8-4. Their power hitter comes up, and he smacks a grand slam to tie the game. But as he rounded the bases, he did a strange thing. Instead of just dropping the bat like he should have and rounding the bases, he carried the bat halfway down first base and finally flicked off to the side. As he crosses home plate, the umpire immediately talked with his other referees, and they ended up throwing the player out of the game. They said that the bat flip that he did got too close to the opponents. Before you can understand why he was thrown out, let's go back to earlier in the series. Turns out that these two teams have been chirping at each other the whole time. And the night before this game, it had escalated to the point where the umpires had to warn both teams that this needed to end or there would be consequences. Furthermore, it started with celebrations. I make a play and I give a demonstrative celebration. You see that, you don't like it. So when you make a play, you try to top that. So this went on back and forth, each team trying to top the other celebration till it got to the point where they were about to have it out right on the field. Well, the umpires put a stop to that and say, you guys, there's going to be some consequences if this happens again. So sure enough, as he throws his bat out, it looks like he's showing up the other team. So that caused the umpires to throw him out. What they were trying to do is prevent what almost happened the night before. And if you've been paying attention to sports, especially college sports, there have been a couple brawls lately that have made the news. You take Incarnate Word going against Texas A&M Commerce. During the handshake line, they get into a brawl. The women aren't any better. You had Arkansas State got into it with Southern Miss right there on the floor. One girl get into a scuffle with the home team right in front of their bench. One girl was grabbing her by the neck, and that could have ended up pretty bad for the player. But they finally got it all separated. But this is the kind of thing that looks bad on all parties involved, and the umpire didn't want to have anything to do with that. So you can't really blame him for throwing this player out of the game to get heads back to where they needed to be. But when you think about all this pushing and shoving and wanting to fight and getting mad over inconsequential things, you have to think about what's going on in society. It seems like society is getting madder and madder these days about minor things. I see it in the schools. Students get into it with each other over something minor. They get on the phone and they call mom come up to the school, start raising sand. Where is it all in? So it's going to take more people like this umpire to step in and put a stop to all these potential skirmishes before they can erupt. So I think it's a good thing. But my thing about all of this is that these young players, they seem to be entitled to the point where nobody can say anything to them. And if you say anything to them, you're going to get it all from them. And I got a big problem with that. So I don't know, besides throwing players out of the game, you're not going to stop the sports because too much money is involved, but it has to be an end somewhere. I told my team, I told you I had a baseball team. If any of you guys get tossed out for anything, even though that bat flip was inconsequential, that player been one of my players to get thrown out of the game, he was done. He's a reflection on the school, he is a reflection on me, and I don't want to have any part of that. So the last thing I want is a player getting ejected. And I told him quite clearly, if you ever get ejected, you're going to be done. And I don't know where it starts with everybody else, but with myself, I have no other choice but to get rid of him because it's just going to grow and fester. With the attitudes of today and everybody just looking for an excuse to get into a fight, I think it's a good idea to just go in and cut loose of these hot-headed players and go with somebody else. I mean, what difference does it make? If they get into an incident every other game and they get tossed out, they're not on the court or playing for you very much anyway, so why not just go ahead and cut ties with them all together? I think that's the only logical thing to do. But most coaches, they don't want to do that because rosters are already thin these days, and especially in high school where recruiting is a big thing, the players, they don't say it, but they hold it over teams and coaches' heads that they can go somewhere else. Well, as far as I'm concerned, on recruiting, if you want to go somewhere else, by all means, let me help you get out. Because all you're doing is creating a problem. You would not run my program, and I'll be glad to play against you because I know eventually you're going to tank the other team's program, and you're probably going to end up ruining their whole season. So if you want to go, go. I am not recruiting. I'm going to coach whoever comes to that building, and I am going to win. Remember I said that. This is Sports for Real.